Thanks for joining the session. So in this session, we are going to see some key concepts on the introduction to Linux. So Linux is one of the operating systems along with Windows and Mac OS and some other operating system out in the market. But Linux is most popular whenever you come into the DevOps and other related activities for server deployments, or you want to do some kind of web server implementations. It can be any kind of application deployments and all. So Linux is most popular out of that case because it has got its more CLI based implementations, and it is very easy when you are going to deploy some application to access it via the scripts and all, and it is more secure. This is an open source Unix like operating system. There are multiple operating systems that are available for this, like for example it can be Amazon, it can be the Ubuntu operating system or CentOS or Fedora. There are many other Linux operating systems that are available. So in this lecture, we are going to see some basic introduction to Linux operating system, how you are going to log into that. After logging into a Linux server, what are the basic commands you generally utilize for executing day-to-day activities on Linux. Okay, so this is more strong across the platforms and permission systems. You can set some permissions on the files pretty much easily. So we are going to discuss two basic concepts on today, which is nothing but the file permissions as well as the SSH connectivity between the servers. Those 2 points we deal in bit in detail when we are discussing about the basic commands on Linux. Okay, and you can also see some installations of particular tools, or the installations of the packages are pretty much easier when you compare to the other operating systems. In Linux it is more easier. Okay, so today we are going to see some kind of commands on navigation, some text manipulation, file permissions, some system informations like processes and all, and we'll try to some create some users and check the users and groups, and we will see some networking stuff, and we some zips or uzips, TARs kind of compression commands. So these are very basic commands that I'm just going to cover, but there will be a lot of list of commands that we generally use, but these day-to-day commands you need to just understand and just try to get hands-on and get some more comfort on executing these commands on day-to-day. Okay, so for doing this particular set of item, so I've already created the two Linux boxes on this to execute or to understand the basic Linux commands. If you see here, I have created two Linux servers already on the AWS console for executing this set of commands for the Linux activity. If you see, there is server 1 which I have launched and server 2 which I have launched. You can just refer to the earlier video to try launching an instance on an EC2. So I have launched these two servers only for executing our current use case. Okay, so let me get into this and click on this instance ID, and I'm trying to connect to this. I'll click on connect. Either you can use the SSH client or you can use the session manager EC2 Syria console, but I'm very much interested in selecting this EC2 instance connect because this will be opened in the browser. So I'm just using this. After connecting to this particular server, you can see what are all the users or the IP addresses to which you have connected. So this will take quite a few of seconds for establishing the connection. So once you are there, you can see the IP address to which you have connected. You can verify it from the console of the instance. You can see the private IP address is 81 dot ending with 81.76. So you can just see the same on this 81/76. So there are pretty much few commands on this. So clear is nothing but clearing the screen, and for navigation, before that you can also check with for checking the operating system. You can see cat space /os/release. So cat is you whenever you want to check, for example, the content of a particular file, whatever it is present on the file. If you want to display that content, you can utilize this. So cat etc/os-release will give you the information of a particular operating system on that, and you can also do a clear screen for clearing it. ls will give you the list of objects present in this. I'm just navigating to the root directory with cd // it will go to the root directory. So this is a root directory we generally call on Linux. So I'm just doing an ls. which gives you the number of folders or multiple directories present under this. You can do an pwd for giving you the present working directory, and you will use cd for changing the directory. So here directory is nothing but a folder. Let me use cd for changing the directory and navigating it to a temp folder, cd space temp, and do an ls. This gives you the list of the files with an ls. This gives you the list of the files in a particular directory. ls space -a will give the list of the files with the necessary permission. So this permission set and this everything we'll see in detail when we are covering the permissions. And now we'll just cover like 5-10 minutes later. Once we understand some basic commands, we'll see what are these file permissions and how do we set for it. Okay, so I'm just clearing the screen again. So make mkdir is for making a folder. So let us say I want to create a called folder 1, and if you want to remove it, it's rmdir folder 2 or folder 1, sorry. This is how you can utilize for folder 1 and folder 2. And you can also utilize different options on Linux for creating the folders or deleting the folders, but make directory mkdir is one of the standard commands we generally use for creating the directory, but there are many other commands out in the Linux for creating such directories. And you can also for copying the content, you can use, for example, cp. Let us say, let me navigate to folder 1. Okay, so just cd space folder 1. You got an error like cd space folder 1 is not present. No such file or folder directory is present because I've deleted this folder 1. So mkdir to folder 1 and change directory to folder 1. So I've created only folder, so change directory to folder. Now if I click ls, there's nothing present. So you can use touch command to create a file. So touch.txt will create a file, a simple file, and echo some content hello into test.txt. Echo is nothing but a command to print the output. So if I say like this, echo hello, it will print it. In the similar fashion, it will print this output to test.txt. You can do a cat of the text.txt. You can see this. Okay, I'm going back and I'm just creating another folder called folder 1, and after that I'm creating, or I'm copying the content from folder slash test.txt to dot is nothing but current working directory dot slash folder 1. I'm copying the under the file under folder slash test.txt to folder 1. So this will copy into the folder 1. If you go ahead and check on folder 1, you can see this test.txt. Okay, if you check if you have checked previously, there is no content on the folder 1, but after copying, we are able to copy some test.txt to folder 1. You can utilize some rm command for removing the files, like rm space test.txt. And if you want to remove the directory, like for example, if you want to remove the directory folder, so you can just choose rm space -rf folder 1. Okay, so now let us say, for example, let me create touch space example.txt. Now I want to find a file with naming called example.txt. Then what I'll do is find space dot hyphen name space example.txt. So this says that okay, so there is a file called example.txt in the current folder. So find is a command utilized for searching files in a directory. So this dot says in a current directory. If you want to search in any other directory, let us, for example, I'm just going to the home folder. Okay, now I want to find if there is any file with name example.txt in the temp folder. I'm just giving like this. So it says there is no file present in example.temp.txt with the name exapl, because this is a misspell name. So if you can just example, this says that okay, there is a file called temp example.txt on this /tmp/example.txt. This is how you can use your find commands for executing your day-to-day activities. Like for example, if you get a use case to find some particular file in a folder, you can use this find command. Okay, and there is one more command called vi, because vi is where it will be utilized for writing some content into the file. So vi is nothing but the vim editor on linux, where it is used to log into a particular, open a particular file and edit it. Okay, so vi example.txt, it will open a file. I'm trying to insert some data into that. Let me write hi. If you press let's see, let me close the file. So vi, the file name, it will open the editor. Okay, after that you press enter. If you press I, insert mode will be opened. So then you will be able to write the content hi. Okay, after that you need to press escape. The insert mode will go. Then you need to give a colon, which you see here, it will give a colon. Okay, then you need to give w, which is nothing but write. Q is nothing but close. Press enter. So it gives you are exiting the file with writing and closing it. Okay, so this is how you can start working on writing, if writing some content into the files. Then, like for example, I want to check what is present on that particular file. I can use cat, and I want to replace that hi with by. So then I can use this set command with set hyphen I is nothing but hyphen in place, which will replace the content which is present. Like for example, S for substitute hi with by globally. Okay, in example.txt, this says that set is nothing but a replacing a string in a file. So I'm replacing hyphen I is nothing but in place, so I'm replacing the content hi with by. Globally is nothing but wherever I see hi should be replaced with by in this example.txt file. I'm just replacing this. Now if I see cat example.txt, I can see it as by. Okay, this is also one of the important command that we generally use in our day-to-day. There are also some other commands, like for example uname. Okay, which gives you the display of your system information. Okay, and if you click who, this gives you which user you are and who you are logged in. Okay, and if you give a df, which gives you the disk availability, how many disks are present, what is the uh, amount of storage you have used on that particular. If you say df -h, it can also give the information based on it in the bytes and gbs. Okay, this is in the blocks. If you use -h option, you can get in the gb. So there is 8.6 gb available. Total 8.6 gigs of data. We have utilized 1.6 GB used, and 7 GB is present. So use percent is 19. So this is how also you can check the uh, disk usage on this. And if you just click free, it will say how much memory that is present. Okay, so these are some basic commands that you can utilize. And also you can check some, like for example ps space hyphen ef will give you the list of the processes that are running on the linux server. So the list of the processes are nothing but these are simple, like the services which are in windows, or some kind of processes, or some kind of systems that are running on your linux box. Like for example, I want to see like cryptd. So I want to see whether the crypt is running or not. Then what I'll do is ps space ef grep for that particular process. Okay, so grep for, so before that, let me introduce you to the command called grep. So grep is command is nothing but the search command. So grep will search for a string in a particular file. Okay, so grep will search, for example, it will search for, let us say, by in example.txt. It will say okay, by is present. If I grep for hi, it will not return anything. So grep is basically, it will search for a string in a file. If it is present in that particular file, it will return the output like this. If there is no string like this in a file, it will not return anything. So in the similar fashion, ps-ef will give you the list of the processes that are running on the linux system. So then in that I want to grep for cryptd. So I can see okay, there is a cryptd process that is running with the user called root with some process ID, some information like P1753, something like that. Okay, so this is how this process ID informations you can see. And there are some kill also, like kill -9, give the process ID 1753. This will kill the particular process. As I'm not root, this is not operated, but if I'm a root operation, we can execute that. I'm not killing this because I don't want to stop any kind of processes. So if you are root, to switch into root, this is the command sudo space su. Sudo space su will jump you into the root, but let's come out of the root, because we'll see in detail when we are learning on the shell script what is the root user and why we are using that root user and all. Okay, so this is how you can switch into the root user by sudo su. You will get it into root, but I'm just exiting that so that I'll be present on the EC2 user. So let me clear the screen. And if you want, there are some commands on connecting networking. So if you want to ping google.com, you can ping like this. If you see this 64 bytes some data that is coming, it says that okay, now you are able to connect to this what do you say, that google.com. You can just press Ctrl C to exit that particular command. If you press ifconfig, it gives you the information of all the networking stuff. Okay, the network configuration information. And we will see the SSH command and the SSEP command after discussing about the SSH connection and the file permissions and all. Okay, and for example, if you want to download something, you can use wget with the download URL. Okay, you can just hit a URL and hit on wget, it will download. Okay, we will see this command in detail when we are discussing on S3. Okay, so like for example, if I want to tar some particular file, so tar -cbf archive dot tar is nothing but an archiving utility present on Linux. So I just want to archive this example.txt. This is how you can archive. So if you just press enter, there is an archive.tar which is this, where example.txt is archived. Okay, so and also as this is a kind of CentOS based operating systems, so I can use some yum package manager. So yum is a package manager, is nothing but where you will be utilizing this yum for downloading the stuff. Okay, so yum install, you generally do a yum install a package name. Let us say I want to install Apache, yum install Apache. Okay, this says that this command need to be run with the supervised privileges. So let me switch to the root for such use cases. I'm just switching to the root. I'm clearing the screen and I'm installing Apache. Okay, so this will install Apache. It's not present with no match for argument found for Apache. So let me install with yum install Apache 2. Okay, so it says that the latest repository which is present on the Amazon Linux is not able to check any find for Apache 2. What I'll do is I can install some kind of, or let me update it. Yum update will update the latest repositories. So it's already there. Let us say, for example, if you want to install any tool, you can install like this: install Apache on Amazon Linux. Okay, so if you get that, Apache will give you the detailed information on how to install that particular server on Amazon Linux 2. So it's on Apache Linux. Apache 2 is the what do you say, the package name you need to be using whenever you are installing this. Like for example, yum install Apache 2 should work. Okay, it says that no match for argument. It says that unable to find an Apache 2. So let's check how this is present, or let me install another package, yum install httpd. Okay, if you see, httpd is also another package like that. I'm just installing that. So this is how it installs a package. So we will see in detail whenever we are dealing with an EC2 server how to install a web server, set up a web server. So httpd is also a similar package like that. Okay, so Apache 2 might have been not available on that particular server, but you can use this httpd for testing, and you can use n number of packages like this. Okay, so these are some basic commands that we use, but before we get or enter into this, we need to understand some file permissions and SSH communications. So that's why I've created two instances for our testings, which is nothing but server 1 and server 2. The basic information or basic understandings that we need to come across when we are working as a DevOps engineer is what is the SSH communication and how you are going to communicate between two servers. So let me give some brief understanding on that. Okay, so now we are going to discuss two major topics under the Linux. So one is the file permissions and other one is the SSH connection. Okay, for file permissions, whenever you understand or whenever you check the permissions of a particular file, you can execute a command like ls-la, like how you have seen in the earlier stuff. If you see, I've executed a ls-la, which will list the particular file. I mean, like it will show what are the files that are present in this particular folder, and you can see this a kind of a string. Okay, let me copy this. Okay, and let me write it over here. Let me increase the size of it so that we can understand it more better. Okay, so if you see here, let me remove this dot for better understanding. So if you see here, there is a D for directories or nothing but folders. If there is a folder, you see a D, and if it is a file, you see a hyphen at the start. Okay, so if you come here, let me take, so this denotes, this particular digit denotes, so this denotes the file or directory. Okay, so before getting into read write all these options, we need to understand some basic things on it, like what is read, what is write, and what is execute. Read is nothing but where you can open the file, browse through it and see it, and write is nothing but you will be having access to edit it. Execute is nothing up but you will be having access to execute the file. There is difference from reading and executing. Reading is you will be opening the file. Executing is like, for example, if you have a file called .py, using the Python application you will be executing or running that file. So that these are three different permissions. So for all these three permission, there are three different values on Linux. For read it will be 4 octal value, for write it is 2, and for execute it is 1. So totally there are 7 octal values. I mean, like if you sum up this, it will be 7. So that's why generally if you see some commands for Linux permissions, you see like 700 777 for full permissions, or 400 it says that read write or read write 4 for read, and no permissions for other stuff. So, but whenever you come into here, if you see this we have discussed, like this is for file or directory, mentioning for file or directory. But if you come into this three parts, you can see the similar three ones for over here as well. You can see the similar three ones over here as well. Okay, so this says that what permissions you are going to give for the owner. Owner is nothing but who has created this file or who is the owner of this particular file. Okay, so what permissions you are going to create for this owner, what permissions you are going to give for the owner. Here what permissions you are going to give for the group. Okay, group is nothing but a set of users will be added but to a particular group in Linux, or it can be like, for example, there is a department called ECE department. So all users will be added to that particular ECE department or that group, so that all that group will have the necessary access. So this relates to the group. Okay, and this relates to the other, which is nothing but if he is not a owner and if he is not in the group, what permissions you are going to give to that other. Okay, so that's why we have this kind of set of three kinds of values that we are giving, like read, write, execute, or something like that. Okay, so this three values or this three dashes over here, 1 2 3, if you are not giving any access, if you are like, for example, this goes for read, write, and execute. So I'm not giving the write access. So then I'll put it as hyphen. I'm not giving the execute access. So I'm putting as hyphen. I don't want to give even the write access. So I'll just put a hyphen over here. So this denotes in the literal fashion, but if you want to denote in the number, so this RW hyphen R hyphen hyphen or R dash dash. This says that for R I'll give it as 4, for W I will give it as 2, okay, and for this hyphen 0, and this is R 4 0 0, this is 4, this is 0 and 0. So now if you combine, so this will be 6 and this will be 4 and this will be 4. So what the file permissions are, it is 644. This says that owner can read write, others can read and execute. I mean, like, group can read and execute and others can also read and execute. So this is how the generally the file permissions goes. So you need to understand the basic stuff whenever you, for example, when someone asks you to set a file permission of file 1, so that a owner should have full access, okay, and a group should have read and execute access, and others should have only read access. So full access, what does that mean? I want to give read, write and execute. So it means read, write, execute, or I'll just give X. After that, for group I want only read and execute. So I'll just give R hyphen and execute. For others I want to just give read. So I'll just give R hyphen hyphen. So this says that 4 2 1, this is 4 0 and this is 1 and this is 4 0 0. This says that 7 5 4. So I'm just giving the permissions as 754 to that file 1 using a command called chmod. So chmod is the command what we generally use for modify the permissions of a particular file. Okay, so this is the basic behind whenever we use a command called chmod. So I'm going to use a chmod on a file to change the permissions. So this is what the background on the permissions, how we change it. So for a particular file, if you want to change the permissions, so these are the values for those values standing over here, and for each and every value it represents for owner, group and others. Okay, so let me jump into the actual Linux box and set some permissions for a particular file. Okay, so let us say there is example.txt. So I want to set, for example, the similar fashion what we see here. So I want to set the permissions for owner, full, group, read and execute and other as read, the same chmod 754. So I'll just go execute like chmod 754 and example.txt. Now if you see here ls-la, so it's completely different from what we have seen earlier. It's rwx, rwx and r-x, r-x and r-x on this. Okay, got it? So this how it goes on this. After that, this is all about the file permissions, how you can change using that chmod. So you can also use chown to change the owner and the groups. Like for example, now if you see ls-la, this example.txt is of ec2 user hyphen ec2 user. So let us say I want to add a user. I can add this command like user add will add a user called demo. Okay, so I cannot do this, so I'll just use a sudo. So sudo is another command in Linux to execute as a root user. Sudo user add demo. Okay, so I've added that user called demo. Now what I'll do is I will change the owner permission of this change owner. So I'll just give a hyphen r so that it will change recursively on this particular example.txt with ec2 user. Instead of ec2 user I want to add demo, but the group can be ec2 hyphen user for example.txt. Now it's my bad, it's not chmwo, it's only cho. Okay, now ownership operation not permitted. These errors you get because I want to do it using a sudo. User. So this has changed. Now you can do a ls-la you can see the example.a, it has been changed to this. Got it? So this is how generally we do the file modifications, or it can be a kind of ch mods, like as we seen in an earlier case, where whenever you are launching your EC2 instance, you downloaded a key and you have executed that command of chmod 400. If you see this and just click on connect, you have seen like in an SSH client you see like chmod 400. This says that only owner should be able to read it, not even execute it. So this is how secure we are making our keys, so that no one else can be able to execute or use it. Okay, so this is how generally the Linux commands works. The most of the Linux commands, we are just covered only a few basic commands, but there will be a lot more when we are learning our DevOps course, when we are doing our day-to-day activities on DevOps, when we go and start on the Jenkins, we got on the GitHub, and setting up some kind of CI/CD pipelines. We learn more. Okay, so one other basic thing is, let me explain you one more basic stuff on this, is for SSH communication. Okay, so this is one of the most important topic whenever you come into any kind of interview or any kind of DevOps level set of questions. So what is meant by SSH communication? Okay, SSH communication is nothing but a secure shell communication. Okay, so this is very important when you go for any kind of basics on Linux. Okay, so let us say what is meant by SSH, because these are the terms. I'm sorry. So these are the terms that we generally come across whenever we are trying to deal with the Linux servers, majorly with the Linux servers. Okay, so let us say I'm having a Linux server 1, as we seen earlier in the console. We have launched two servers, server 1, and one more thing, one is server 2. Okay, so initially when we try to connect between the servers like this, if server 1 wants to connect to server 2, the connection will not be there by default. We need to establish the connection or communication. If server 1 wants to speak to server 2, the only possible way, I mean to say the best way for communicating between the servers on Linux is SSH. So you need to set up SSH. Okay, you need to set up the SSH. So SSH communication basically says that, let us take a scenario. Okay, let us take a scenario. You are there and this is your house. Okay, this is your house. So you want to secure your house by putting a lock on it. Okay, so you have put a lock on your house. Okay, you have just put a, or added a lock on your house. So only you will be having that particular key. Okay, only you will be having that particular key, only you can open it. Rest all can only come to your house and see, okay, there is a lock, only you can open it. So they will ask a key from you, or they will ensure you only open the door and they can enter into your house. So in the similar fashion, whenever you are setting up the SSH communication, think this key as a private key. Okay, so think this as a private key and the lock as a public key. Okay, so private key always will be there with you, and with the help of this private key, this public key can be opened, or this lock can be opened, so that you can enter inside. Okay, so in the similar fashion, whatever we discussed, in the similar fashion, we need to create a key pair. So whenever we call it a key pair is nothing but a combination of public and private keys. Okay, so this is very important. So this public and private keys we need to generate on server 1. So we are communicating from server 1 to server 2. It's not like if we set up a communication from server 1 to server 2 can also communicate with server 1. No, the same setup needs to be implemented from on server 2 as well, so that to and fro communication can happen. But for now we are only discussing how a server can one can communicate to server 2. For this, first you need to create a key pair, or nothing but you just need to create that key pair, public and private key pairs. Okay, so then copy this public key onto the server 2. You need to copy this public key onto server 2. Okay, then execute or then you need to SSH with EC2 user. Let us say here if it is a EC2 user at the rate private IP of server 2. So then this communication will be to the server 2 from server 1 will be established. Okay, for setting up an SSH, the most important thing you need to understand is you need to set up a key pair where public key and private key will be generated. Once that is set up, copy the public key from server 1 to server 2 into a file called authorized keys. Okay, I'll show you where this authorized key is present. So on this authorized keys folder, I mean like onto authorized keys file, you need to copy the public key of server 1 so that you're just putting a lock on this server. Okay, this says that you are putting a lock on this server and you can communicate from server 1 to server 2 using this private key. Nothing but you can open this lock using your private key on this server 2. So this is how you can securely communicate between one server to other server using SSH. Okay, so this secure shell communication is very important because this will be dealing whenever we discuss Jenkins or whenever we discuss some kind of GitHub actions or a lot of DevOps tools whenever we are discussing. So this SSH communication is very much important. So you need to catch hold of the concepts under this. So what is a key pair? What is a public key, private key? Whenever we copy this public key to the server 2, that says that who is holding this key pair can be able to access that particular server. Okay. So now let's see this in action. Okay. So now if you come into here, you can see on the instances page there are two instances, server 1 and server 2. Let us say this is server 1 and server 2. So now I want to connect to server 2 from server 1. First, I'm already on server 1. You can confirm with the IP address. It's 76 and it is 76. Okay, so let's try to do an SSH without setting up so that you'll see the error. SSH EC2 user at the rate IP address of server 2, the private IP address. Okay, I'm just pasting enter. So this is okay. Then for the first time it asks for the key phrase, just press an yes. So it says that EC2 user into this particular IP address, this ending with 58, it says as a permission denied. This is a public key permission denied. It says that you are not authorized to. Okay, for that what we need to do is whenever we try to do it for the first point, we are not able to connect. Okay, we are not able to connect. So the next thing what you need to do, as we discussed over here, we need to create a key pair. Okay, then copy that public key and then you can do an SSH. So for creating a key pair, SSH-keygen is the command for creating a key pair. Okay, you can type this SSH keygen from any folder. Enter this SSH keygen. It says that generating the public private RSA key pair. You need not to give any path. It directly saves on the home.ssh folder. Keep it default. Need not to have any passphrase for now. We'll discuss what is this passphrase at a later point of time and why do we need this. And then press a couple of enters and now it says that your public key has been saved and your identification has been saved. This identification is nothing but a private key and this is a public key. So now you can do a cd space enter, which moves you to a home folder. If you see the home EC2 user, and if you do a ls-la, you can see a folder called .ssh. So now I'm just clearing the screen, going to .ssh folder, type ls, and if you can see cat space id underscore rsa.pub. Okay, so I can see, okay, this is the content I want to copy. As we see here, this is the content I want to copy from server 1 to server 2. This is the public key. Okay, this is a public key I want to copy to server 2 on authorized keys file. So then what I need to do is I need to log into server 2, click on connect. Let me go to the EC2 instance connect, click on connect. Let me move it towards right so that's easy for understanding. So for copying, first let me copy this. I've copied it. After logging into this, you need to get into the same EC2 user. So check the present working directory, it should be home EC2 user. Then do a ls-la, navigate to .ssh folder, and just check, you will be having a authorized keys folder. I mean like the file. So you can edit it by vi. Okay, Control C, just paste it, authorized keys. You can edit it by going into the last, by navigating to last of the file. But the best thing is not opening the file. As we discussed earlier, echo something to a file can also be done. So I'm just copying this. So let me copy this again. Okay, and I'll be pasting here. Okay, so close the double quotes, two forward arrows so that it will write into that file, authorized keys file. Now if you do a cat authorized keys, it shows there is the file, I mean like this public key has been added. Okay, now let's try, are we able to connect to this? Okay, previously when we tried to connect we got an error, right? So now let's try to connect using this SSH EC2 user with .58 is nothing but the server to IP address. Okay, so let me load this servers. If you click on server 2, the IP address ends with .58. If you see here, now I'm doing an SSH to that particular EC2, to that particular server 2 using an EC2 user. Just hit enter. If you see, I'm able to log in now. This is my server. I have logged into the server 2. So this says that this communication from server 2 and server 1 has been established. So why I'm making you understand this in more deeper, because whenever you're working on Jenkins, you will be, it's nothing but server, on server 1 you have installed Jenkins. Okay, now you came across like you want to deploy some code into like let me discuss here Jenkins, and you are having 10 different servers. Okay, so from Jenkins you want to deploy code in multiple servers. So using this SSH communication only, you will be deploying to the servers. Okay, using this SSH only you will be deploying to the servers. Okay, so this is basically what SSH mean and some basic commands on Linux. I'll try to cover more and more Linux commands in the shell scripting we discuss later, and more in Jenkins dealing with the CI/CD stuff and all. But these are some basic things that we need to understand, because when we go much deeper into the Linux, or when we I mean like the DevOps practices and all, it will be more easier. Okay, so thanks for joining. That's for today's session. I'll be adding the assignment on the GitHub repository, so you can just go through that. Thank you so much. Bye.